Hello again YouTube, this is Jodas Welsh, also known as @11 on City of Heroes on the Union server, and we're continuing the Posterity videos for all my characters. And character we're going to be looking at is one Dominic Longstaff, aka Dolomite, which is a stone tanker. Before Bishop was made, this was actually my main tanker. Just going to make use of costume change here. So this is him in his normal human form, and then goes into his stone skin there. So this was my main tanker before Bishop was made, and then got ridiculously IO'd out. This is for tanking purposes by virtue of it being a stone tanker. For the longest time, it was considered that the stone tankers were the be end and end all of tanking, particularly in one mode. So I'm going to try and just take on some enemies with essentially out of just normal. Some of the normal sort of Stone Armour sets, if I can call it that, for the time being, just to show you that before essentially going on to the one that most people always aim for, the tier 9, which was the Granite armour. But stone tankers were basically seen as just being one of the best tanker sets, just by virtue of so much damage resistance that there was nothing really out there that was gonna that would stop it. Essentially, very popular for the longest time on Statesman task forces, as it was at the time. I know it's been renamed. With the death of Statesman, it was renamed to the Miss Liberty Task Force, but I always still refer to it as the Statesman Task Force. But yeah, stone tankers were very, very popular for that. Just for the simple reason of they would at least be able to stand there for the best of times and take a lot of the abuse from Lord Recluse in the Granite armour. The main problem with stone tankers though was essentially the weakness was, if you were going to have such strong damage resistance, that you would suffer in speed. So you can see here that all of a sudden he's eventually down to a crawl here on moving. Generally speaking, you would always have your stone tankers use teleport as their travel power, just because it was their ways means of getting around. Stone tankers love to have kinetic based either defenders or controllers on the team, just because it would keep them moving. I would imagine it would all be the same as well for the Stone Armour brutes on the villain side traditionally, but got even worse when you essentially went into the meat and potato one that's really down to crawl. But you would have all of these armours leading up, but essentially as soon as the tier 9 Granite armour came, essentially most people just ran at this, and as you can see, it's just a giant stone golem. A lot of people criticised this because essentially everyone looked like this when they took the power. There wasn't any difference, so you all of a sudden your character's costume was fairly meaningless. But with this armor mode, this was essentially the strongest. Nothing was going to get through. It was still subject to psionic damage, so in those cases you still had to essentially go into normal mode and stick on the minerals, which would at least give you some resistance. The main drawback from running Granite armour though would be that you went even slower, but also your recharge time was slow. The powers would essentially go to a crawl, so taking hasting was almost a necessity in itself as well. Again, having kinetics out. One thing that always bugged me though was that it also lowered the damage of your attacks, and I couldn't agree with that. I mean, a lot of people say that yes, it actually made it balancing, but I thought, well, the recharge is probably good enough as a as a weakness. I mean, why, you know, suffer it even more? But you know, it doesn't look obvious there, but there was actually, you know, less damage on that attack than would be normally if essentially was not in Granite mode. But yeah, this was obviously shored up easily with an IO build, which I was planning on getting round to, but again, it's one of those that you know, unfortunately we'll never get round to. But yeah, there was ways around, obviously the just shoring up the lost damage in Granite mode, and obviously the recharge, you can get the recharge back to more respectable levels. So it meant that obviously it was super fasted outside of the Granite mode, but since most people expect Granite tankers to be in the Granite mode, or Stone tankers to be in the Granite mode, see, there you go. I'm seeing Granite, you know, Granite tankers, because essentially that's all that we're ever in, really. But yeah, I always did want to muck on with one, because you know a lot of people had them, and it just seemed to be the done thing to have, really, for you know, most tanking situations. But as I say, when Bishop, you know, the Prince Bishop got made, and certainly once he was IO'd out, then it just didn't seem any point, because he was probably getting even, you know, beyond the sort of, you know, levels of defense and damage resistance that a stone tanker out of the box could actually do. So it seemed a bit pointless really doing so. You know, could actually be stronger than a stronger tank with Bishop than what essentially Dolomite had, and was obviously more mobile. But there was times when I said, yeah, no, I want to just have a bit of a change and a little bit different, and you know, I'd break out Dolomite. So he didn't exactly go on the shelf and whatnot. And like I say, the plan was that I was still going to IO out the characters so that it would shore up a lot of the weaknesses that it has, and then that would have allowed it to be played a lot more frequently. Because you know, I wasn't going to delete it, because you know, the situations where some people would say, well, you know, I prefer to have the stone tank if you can bring one, please, you know. But and sometimes just, you know, sometimes you just like to have a bit of variety as well, you know, without, you know, getting too entrenched in playing one particular character. So, you know, there was no chance of being deleted anyway. And I only really ever deleted characters if I wanted to re-roll them for whatever reason. Like, I thought the power set was better suited for the concept more than anything, you know, because the character Dolomite itself, story-wise, was always pretty good. In the Dunelm group, he was always essentially, he was forever the newbie, because whereas all the other characters essentially were already, you know, working as you know, defenders of the earth, heroes essentially, or at least had some form of combat background so that they could do the job. Dolomite was just a quarry worker that essentially ended up at the wrong place, wrong time, and got involved in a nasty accident which essentially gave him the powers that he's got, and there was no way to reverse what had happened to him. The Dunelm group took him in and just said, right, okay, we can't do anything to reverse, but why don't you put your talents to use, and we'll give you the ways and means to do that. And essentially, you know, became you know, a hero out of that. But that obviously wasn't what his his sort of day job was, you see. So he was always seen as the bit of the clumsy newbie and whatnot. But he had a good, you know, good heart to him, and essentially did it, you know, to give his son that he didn't see a lot of, you know, a lot of pride and inspiration and such. So even though he was essentially superseded by Bishop as far as just being used as a tanker, there was no danger of the character being dropped, because, you know, I kind of like the character concept and the story behind it. And like I say, if he had been given the chance to be IO'd out, I would have still played him. He's been made in Champions, and I mean, I'm still not set on an actual build yet on Champions, but there's a lot of stone-based powers in that game which, you know, will you know, can quite easily match the reflection, really. So of the character. So you know, he still lives on in other games essentially. So it's a shame that, you know, like you say, again, you know, it's going. It would have been nice to have played a stone tanker that was IO'd out with the weaknesses, you know, that was put on the power set to show it up as well. So I think I'll tell you what, I'm gonna see if I can actually get around a little bit quickly and get this done before time's up. So I'll just stay out the mode. So yeah. You actually cut them down a lot quicker, and the recharge is not as vicious either. So yeah, I'll probably just stay in this mode now for the rest of it. But I suppose really that's the thing you could do. You see, you could actually, if you were running solo and you were just doing normal mobs such as this, you could probably just run through just as the normal set. But if you're obviously in a team and it was mass mobs, then obviously you'd probably want to be in the Granite mode for their benefit and keep everyone alive. I suppose really because the tankers were probably never really seen to actually do damage anyway. That wasn't their job. Their job was just basically just to be there to soak the damage and let everyone else do the job. But so I suppose in that sense, I shouldn't really be that beaten around the bush that, you know, the damage was weakened when you went into the Granite mode. But yeah, you know, I suppose that really would have been the way to play them anyway. But yeah, I did enjoy getting this character to 50. It was you know, there was no danger of the. I mean, that was the thing. Actually, I don't think I actually had a hard job getting the character to 50. I mean, the endurance was a bit of a problem and whatnot, but health certainly wasn't, because they'd actually have a heal buff over time. You know, essentially where you can increase your health, which was some brace, so you can even have more health than what you had. I think I might actually go in the Granite mode for this. There's a lot more enemies involved there. But yeah, I suppose really they did get a bit of a showing up when the IOs came out, and you could make all the other tanker sets extremely powerful, probably even more so than a stone tanker was capable of doing. You know, with just normal enhancements, but obviously have all of the mobility again. So I suppose in that sense, yeah, they were going to lose out. But yeah, still pretty fun to play. Still kind of look like a fairly meaty with the big stone mallet and whatnot. That's before Titan weapons and whatnot. There was two-handed weapons in place. So yeah, it was still enjoyable. I'm not really sure how well they actually did on Brutes. I think the consensus was that Brutes, it was a bit harder to justify, since Brutes had to constantly be in the fight for their Fury bar. I'll probably be talking about Brutes when I actually get to my main Brute character later in a future video. But I think the consensus was that obviously it wasn't as viable for the Brutes because they had to constantly move, and they were already slow going the stone tanks anyway. So I think I'll just finish this guy off. There we go. So yeah, we'll end it there then. So yeah, that was Dolomite, stone tanker. Pretty fun set, very popular for the majority of the history of the game. Like I say, it's been easily recreated in other games, so you know the character does live on in other means in other games. But yeah, still a pretty fun set in its own right. And there we go. Just a shame, like I say, I didn't get to see its potential with an IO build, but you know, there we go. So we'll call it a day there then. So yeah, this is Jodas Welsh signing off, and I'll see you on the next video.